but the tariffs levied by the U.S. have exposed these key sectors to unprecedented challenges. Ontario's auto manufacturing sector directly employs 150,000 workers. Ontario is also the steel-making hub of Canada, home to 3 major producers and a supply chain supporting 16,500 more workers. Our steel and aluminum industries have long been safe, secure, and highly integrated suppliers to the North American manufacturing sector. But amid the turbulent trade environment, we are faced with a turning point. That is why we are announcing the launch of the Protecting Ontario Financing Program, an initiative dedicated to protecting the workers and businesses that have made Ontario the economic engine of our nation. Through this $1 billion critical relief program, our government is delivering on our mandate to protect Ontario and help the workers and businesses who stand at the front lines of our economy, who are weathering this unprecedented storm. In the lead up to and since the tariffs were imposed, our government has been meeting face-to-face with companies all across Ontario, the steel, the aluminum, the auto, and the manufacturing sectors. And one thing stands out each and every time. During every conversation, the first topic these companies discuss is their people, the hard-working men and women who are at the center of their operations. Many of these workers have been with their companies for decades. Some have been there for their entire careers, building not only a livelihood, but a legacy. They've built that together. These companies are not standing still. They are retooling production lines, expanding capabilities, and working with government and private sector partners to secure new customers here in Canada and around the world. Ingenuity is never in short supply in Ontario's economy, and this resilience and creativity are matched only by the deep sense of responsibility these companies feel toward their employees. While we can't control the unrelenting determination with which President Trump is pursuing these tariffs, our government can and will continue to stand firm in our unyielding commitment to our workers and our economy. The launch of this $1 billion Protect Ontario financing program builds on the ongoing efforts undertaken this year to support the sectors most heavily impacted. In tandem with recently launched programs like the Ontario Together Trade Fund and the Trade Impacted Communities Program, every member of Premier Ford's cabinet is working together to make it easier for businesses to operate, to grow, and to thrive. Now, these measures are designed not only to help workers weather the storm, but to position them for long-term success because their paychecks and their livelihoods are depending on it. The fact of the matter remains simple. Tariffs on Canadian imports do not create more U.S. jobs. They disrupt industries, they drive up costs, and they're putting a shared competitiveness at risk. Ontario and the United States, we don't just trade together, we build together. And many of our key strategic sectors like aluminum, steel, auto, they form deeply integrated cross-border supply chains, employing millions of workers on both sides of the border, which is why, under the leadership of Premier Ford, we will continue working to protect these workers against the unfair and unwarranted use of Section 232 tariffs and safeguard Ontario's ingenuity for generations to come. Now, please join in welcoming Minister Bethlenfalvy to the podium. He's going to speak on the specifics of this new program.
Well, thank you, Minister Fedeli, and thank you. I know you've been crisscrossing the world selling Canada and Ontario, and you're doing a phenomenal job on that. So thank you for your friendship and your partnership day in, day out for all Ontarian workers and businesses. And good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. When I released the 2025 Ontario budget a few months ago, I was clear that our government is delivering on our mandate to protect Ontario. Clear that no matter what, we would protect our workers and businesses from the impacts of U.S. tariffs. We have already taken historic action to provide our economy with over $30 billion in relief, including $11 billion in direct support for workers and businesses. While this is already making a difference, we need to give our most impacted businesses certainty. In Budget 2025, we allocated $5 billion for the new Protect Ontario account, of which $1 billion was allocated for liquidity relief for those industries hardest hit by Section 232 tariffs. So today, I'm joined by Minister Fedeli to announce we are launching this next pillar in our plan, the Protect Ontario Financing Program. This new program will provide Ontario-based companies in the steel, aluminum, and auto sectors, some of the hardest hit by U.S. tariffs, with up to $1 billion in funding support, and will provide some much-needed relief for Ontario businesses who are facing working capital challenges as a result of tariffs, including payroll, lease, and utility payments. Our government is committing $1 billion in emergency loans to be delivered through the new Protect Ontario Financing Program, which will serve as a key part of our plan to not only keep workers on the job in sectors impacted by tariffs, but to also help us build a more resilient and self-reliant economy that future generations of Ontarians can count on. This program is specifically designed to address businesses impacted by Section 232 tariffs only after they've exhausted all federal tariff support programs. It will be used to support those who are forced to scale back hiring, defer investments, and deal with shrinking margins. And thanks to our government's due diligence in designing this program, we have made sure to build in preventative measures designed to protect the Ontario taxpayer. As I announced in the budget, an additional $4 billion in funding will be announced in the coming months, working with the federal government to further support and transform businesses affected by tariff-related uncertainty. This announcement is timely, as earlier today, I released Ontario's 2025-2026 first quarter finances report. In the first quarter, Ontario's real GDP increased by 0.6%, and the province's finances remain on track with the projections in the 2025 Ontario budget. That being said, we know businesses are facing tremendous uncertainty, and we will continue to protect Ontario's workers, businesses, and jobs from the impacts of U.S. tariffs while building on a more resilient and self-reliant economy to secure long-term prosperity. Our close economic ties to the U.S. indeed present elevated risks and uncertainty to the province's economic outlook. It is exactly with those risks and uncertainties in mind that we have built the Protect Ontario Financing Program. And I have confidence that Ontario will overcome these challenges. Ontarians are resilient. We have gone through tough times before, and we will get through tough times again together. So thank you, and with that, we'd be very pleased to take some questions.
Minister, if you could, just to further explain the eligibility and what businesses need to do to try and qualify for this. No doubt there's going to be more than a few that are looking for some of this protection.
Sure, I'll ask Minister Fedeli to maybe cover some of the things that I may glossed over, but you know, the type of businesses, they have to be impacted by Section 232. They're like steel companies with a 50% tariff. Minimum of 10 employees, a minimum of $2 million in annual revenue. These will be loans from anywhere between $250,000 to $40 million. So think about it as providing a bridging, a liquidity to kind of stay in business, help keep workers on the job, so that that gives them an opportunity to pivot to the new world, whatever that new world is. But it's going to be different markets. The way we've dealt with U.S. trade is going to be different. We're hoping for the best in terms of landing a deal, but we want to make sure we get a good deal. And in the interim, we're going to support these businesses. Vic, do you want to add?
I would add a couple of things. You know, we have already, of course, launched the first phase with the $11 billion, $9 billion in tax relief, $2 billion in WSIB checks. The second phase that these small and medium enterprises can be part of is the Ontario Together Trade Fund. It's a $50 million fund that companies themselves can go online and apply. The application is open now. So this is to help them pivot from making the products they're making today. The Premier has said he wants every nut, every bolt, everything possible that we can make in Ontario to be made in Ontario. So that fund is there. There's the Trade Impacted Community Program that helps municipalities and economic development offices help their businesses in their community, the businesses they know so well, to be able to pivot as well. So that's another $40 million. And then this program, as Peter said, as Minister Bethlenfalvy said, $250,000 to $40 million. There are programs over $40 million for the even larger companies as well. But this is really to help them with their day-to-day liquidity, rent, salaries, and so forth. So there's a stream of programs for them.
What's the third-party financial company that's going to be handling this? I mean, I know during COVID there was a lot of fraud, as we remember. Someone went to jail for it, stealing COVID relief funds. Is this third-party company, like, is it a bank? How's that going to work to make sure that such fraud doesn't happen?
No, we're going to work with just top-rate consulting firms who are strong in risk management, in fraud protection, being able to adjudicate these types of facilities, who have that experience. So it's a short runway in terms of procurement. And we're confident. We learned a lot of things in COVID. The Auditor General pointed out some things. You always like to look at what went well and what you could do better. So I think we've incorporated a lot of those lessons learned.
Who is it? Have you identified the...
No, we're not at the point to be able to disclose that.
How long will it take?
Well, we're talking days and weeks. We're not talking months.
How long do you expect the money to actually go out once a request has been made? Is it immediate? Will it take weeks or months?
We're working to get this money out the door. You know, I would highlight that when we announced some of the supports back in the budget, for example, even before the budget, the deferrals, that was up to $9 billion of provincially administered taxes. And I can tell you that money is being used from day one. That started back on April 1st. It still has more time to run. So I like to think of this, we acted early with a bunch of measures. We're acting again with measures today. Minister Fedeli highlighted some of the things that we put in place, like the Trade Impacted Communities Program, the Ontario Together Trade Program, and now this program.
Minister, your government awarded a $140 million hospital construction contract to a U.S.-based company. Your government defended the decision, saying the process began in 2022 before the current administration. The NDP now saying those contracts weren't actually finalized until last month, long after the trade war began. Is it appropriate to give this work to a U.S.-based company, and should this deal proceed?
I won't speak to that as I don't have all the details, but I will say this. You know, going forward, we have to rethink the way we procure in this country. We have to abide by all the rules, no question. But I think it's fair to say, as the Premier said, that if we can procure in Ontario and in Canada, as the Prime Minister, Carney, has also indicated, and I think that the future is very much focused on what can we build and manufacture. This is an opportunity for Canada to revitalize industries that, for example, use steel, pipelines, shipbuilding, and so forth. So we see this as an opportunity.
What about Minister Fedeli on that too? Because this is Ontario's largest hospital project, and this contract was awarded to a U.S.-based company.
Yeah, as you pointed out yourself, the contracts began, and they take years to develop. And so turning back at this point would have been starting back from scratch. So the Premier's been very clear. Every nut, every bolt, everything we can possibly make, we want to reshore, we want to onshore. That's why we're helping with the companies look at making more plate steel, different size plate steel, different thickness of plate steel, so that we can now supply our shipbuilding sector, that we can supply tanks that are being built. So everything we possibly can move here to Ontario, we intend to move here to Ontario.
Minister, what about the energy surcharges? I think you raised more than over $200,000 for the day it was on. Are you considering bringing this back or something like that?
So can you be a bit more specific on that?
Yeah, the energy surcharges that Ontario put in the States, the exports, energy exports to the States.
The charging on the surplus.
Yeah.
The Premier's been very clear that all options are on the table.
What can you tell us about your plans for the other $4 billion? Where are your thoughts at this point?
So we're working in conjunction with the federal government on a number of programs. As you know, they are in charge of tariffs and the remissions and the money flowing, and they have a number of programs. But we think it's important that we help companies as they transition, pivot from having a secure customer base, for example, in the U.S., which may now be subject to very punitive tariffs. And let's be clear, a tariff is a tax, and it's a consumption tax that is paid by U.S. Consumers. We want to make sure that we can help companies as they pivot to new business models, new customers, maybe longer lead time. So that could mean, as we talked about, shipbuilding in Canada, for our defense industry, advanced manufacturing, new markets in Europe, pipeline building, port building, a range of opportunities here in Canada. We want to help companies make that pivot, and that's where that $4 billion that we're currently working on will be positioned for.
So in order for a business to actually get money out of this Protect Ontario cut, they would have to go to the federal government first. And you said they would have to exhaust all of those streams of revenue. Have those actually been set up that you guys are aware of?
Yes, from our understanding that many of the facilities are being accessed. We've heard from companies that that is the case, but as is the case, we want to be complementary to the federal government. We want to make sure, because those programs are up and running. For example, the lumber program, which they announced, the Strategic Innovation Fund program, which they announced, the Large Enterprise Tariff Facility, which they announced. And I do know that a number of those programs, through the BDC, for example, is another, the Business Development Corporation. But I'd ask you to ask Prime Minister Carney more specifically about where that money is flowing.
Minister, can you tell us from A to Z the process for a company that would want to access this provincial money and how much they could get at the end of this process?
Yeah, the A to Z, okay. The idea is that if you think you qualify, given the parameters that we've laid out, our commitment is to get back to you and get that process going within 5 days, so that you start to actually have the adjudication that's necessary. We want to be timely. We want to be thorough. And finally, we want to be able to give loans anywhere between $250,000 and $40 million. So this will really help a lot of small and medium-sized enterprises that, are facing a lot of uncertainty.
Right now, there have been a lot of companies so far not affected by tariffs because of CUSMA. What are you kind of seeing that could be coming in the future? How are you preparing?
Well, we try to look around corners a little bit. Sometimes that's a bit difficult with the administration in the U.S. But look, we're supporting the Prime Minister. You've seen Premier Doug Ford play an outsized role in championing not only Ontario but Canada, and playing an active role communicating to the public in the U.S., communicating to the people of Canada how that we have to be resilient, that we have to, whatever is around the corner, that we're prepared. The Premier is going up to Ottawa on Monday to talk further about how we can be more resilient and promote economic activity in Canada. And so we want to make sure that we acted early, we're acting now, we'll continue to act as the circumstances and the environment changes.
Do you know how many jobs have been lost so far due to tariffs?
Specifically, no. Again, Statistics Canada has, perhaps that's where some of the numbers may be. I do know that we had significant payroll increases in June, but obviously a smaller payroll, in fact, some job losses in Canada that was announced last week, I believe, for July. What we do know is that the economy grew by 0.6% in the first quarter of this year. And that this quarter right now is tougher. What I can say is that I've been through this. I've been in markets. I've seen economies go up and down for a long time. And one thing I've learned is that Ontarians and Canadians are very resilient.
This will be the last reporter question.
Sorry, for that $4 billion, do you anticipate funding major projects, giving money directly to companies that would need other application-based programs? Any idea?
Well, obviously we're working on program design, but I think one of the important principles here is if you're, by force of geography, culture, and language, we're attached to the United States, but our trading relationship, our $370 billion trading relationship is changing. And so we have to adapt. We have to be innovative. And I know that our companies, not just here in Ontario, but across Canada, want to That's why they're in business. They want to support their workers. They want to have customers that they're adding value to. So we're committed to working with them, and we'll have more details in the near future.
Minister Fedeli, I have a Bill 5 question for you. We heard a lot about the consultations that will happen about the special economic zones. Now it seems that 5 closed-door sessions have been scheduled, but a lot of chiefs have heard nothing about them or have been told last minute. So why haven't we been made more aware, or why isn't there widespread knowledge amongst the indigenous communities that this is happening?
I would say that we intend to fully commit to our duty to consult, and I would say that invitations were indeed sent to all Indigenous communities in Ontario.
But why close those door sessions, though?
It's consultations taking place with the First Nations, and all First Nations communities were invited.
Thank you. That now concludes this press conference.
Thank you, everyone. Enjoy the rest of the summer.